All right, all right. Okay. Let's get this cracking. All right, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I just thought I'd jump on very quickly, very much an impromptu, kind of like live, to be honest. I don't know if I'm gonna have anybody watching or if there's gonna be any questions or not, but we will see what happens. Roy, how you doing, mate? I saw your comment on LinkedIn a little bit early on. So yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you? I've actually recovered from COVID, which is a blessing, if I'm completely honest. Um, so yeah, the last week has been very, very interesting. I did lives and stuff whilst I was in the thick of things, and to be honest, I should have just taken some time off, but I didn't. The show must go on, as they say. So yeah, this is very much an impromptu kind of like live. And yeah, I'm going to literally maybe just talk about a few things I think that are important right now, especially when it comes to things like the market, so on and so forth. And if there are any questions in the next, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour whilst I'm on here, I will also take those questions as well. But yeah, just thought I'd pop on and see what's going on. And also, I'd just actually talk about what's going on as well on the channel. If you haven't watched the update video, it's over here. You probably noticed this right here. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that too. So everybody knows what's going on, so on and so forth. Yes, dude. John, welcome. Thanks for being here, mate. I know it's late on a Thursday night. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be very much impromptu. Anyway, I had a few conversations this week. Um, I had a really, really thought provoking and quite a heartbreaking conversation with somebody day before yesterday. And, I talk about money and investing and financial education and all this kind of stuff on the channel. And it is for good reason. And I'm thankful, first and foremost, for so many of you who watch this channel. You'll speak with me offline on Instagram or wherever that may be. And not only do you speak to me, you recommend me to like your friends and then your family members and so on and so forth. And I had a conversation with a lady this week, and it 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 reminded me of my dad, if I'm honest. So those of you who've been following me for a while remember I've told the story of my dad and how at 56, 57, he realized that he didn't have a pension. And that ended up being his one really big um, worry in life. Like in my household, we would always be very aware of money and the lack of money. We would always be counting the pennies and trying to get every single penny that we had to go as far as it possibly could. We had moments where we didn't have any food for 3 days straight, no running water, no electricity. We didn't have anything at all. Then for my dad to get to, the age of 50, 55, 56, 57, to be like, he's knackered. He's really, really, really knackered. He doesn't want to carry on working anymore, only to realize that he doesn't have anything to fall back on because it's just something that for him, it escaped his mind. And the reason why it escaped his mind is because, and this is something that we all do, we all just get busy with day to day life. We all just get busy with surviving, enjoying ourselves, and dealing with the things in the now that we don't often think about what happens in 10, 15 years' time. And whilst I didn't know what a pension was when he was panicking about it, because I was about maybe 15, 16 at that point, when I finally worked in Canary Wharf and I was working for the investment house, the pension provider there, it dawned on me, this is what my dad was worried about. And so I talk about pensions, and I'm really, really passionate about pensions because my biggest fear is that I don't do enough in my lifetime in order to be able to have a comfortable retirement myself. My dad, he died working, and the conversation I had this week reminded me of that because this lady was slightly older than my dad, but again, had gone through life just doing what she needed to do, raising her son, sending her sons to university, to be in a position now where she's not really in great health and worrying about whether she's going to be able to retire or not, and looking at whether she's actually contributed into pension pots before, thinking that she has, but she's unsure. And then it kind of dawning on her that she might not have, and she might not have a pension. It is really, really heartbreaking stuff. And this is why I do what I do here on YouTube, because again, I just want to have conversations with people that I wish that someone had with me when I was 25, so that I actually understood what I needed to do a little bit earlier. And I'm thankful for a lot of you guys who watch me. I mean, the biggest demographic who watch this channel are between 24 and 34. That's really the bulk of people. That's my largest swathe of the population. And I cannot stress enough, guys. Look, yes, we want to live in the now. That's really important. We have to enjoy what we're doing, particularly after, pandemic and lockdowns and that, I guess, lack of human interaction that we've all endured over the last 2 years. I mean, I'm still in isolation. And this is for the first time in the 2 years. I've avoided COVID the entire time. And the last 10 days, well, the last 6 days have been extremely difficult. The fact that I can't go outside my house, like, we know that we need to enjoy stuff, right? And I think it's really, really important that we do live in the now and we do try to enjoy our hobbies and life as a whole. But I can't stress enough that we also need to have one eye on the future. And look, if you're in your 20s and you're 18 or whatever, the biggest reason why I get for people not investing in things like a pension and not using auto enrollment is, and if you're employed, there is no reason not to, is it's a waste of time. I promise you it's not. I promise you it is not. It's the same old saying, right? You rather have something and not need it than need it and not have it, right? It is very much that. If you pay into a pension, workplace pension, it doesn't cost you anything. You're going to get free money really from your employer. Yes, you've got to sacrifice whatever amount it is that you pay into your pension, but in the long run, that is really going to help you. And it's all about balance at the end of the day and having perspective and being able to think on a number of fronts. It's not just about the day-to-day right now, that instant gratification. Delayed gratification is so important, really, 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 really important. And so, when I had this conversation this week, it reminded me of my dad, and it's just something I wanted to mention here this evening because I think it's really, really, really important. Don't leave it too late. Start early. The funniest thing, and I say this all the time, and I talk about this when I do talks for schools and academies, that everybody wants to be a millionaire, it seems, now with social media, right? That's the in thing. You got to be a millionaire and sometimes even a billionaire, and that seems like the norm because there are so many billionaires now that you can hear speak on social media, and that's great on one side. But with this whole I guess desire and this hype around being a millionaire now, the reality is that if you start young enough, you'll do that in your lifetime, but you just need to do little things consistently. And that doesn't negate you from doing the things that could make you a millionaire much, much sooner, if that is what you want. I do feel as though that people do place a misguided emphasis on this notion of being a millionaire. If it tickles your boat, absolutely, that's fine. But to be honest, you can live a very, very comfortable life without even being anywhere near that remit. And that isn't to say that I don't want to have money. Obviously, I have money. I do well, but I guess my life has kind of taught me that you don't necessarily need that kind of money to live a very, very comfortable life. I think the big thing that we miss in society now is fulfillment and working from a place of intrinsic value in opposed to extrinsic value. And extrinsic, if anyone explains this, and I learned this in Canary Wharf, this was game changing, right? I talk about Canary Wharf a lot, and I mention it in my short film, but it was one of those, it helped mold my view of the world and what I look for in the future. It really, really did, because I met some amazing people there. And if you're working in a professional environment, sometimes we hate going to work, but if you can find a place that makes you click and you have good people around you, the lessons you can pick up are just incredible. And for me, one of the biggest things that my boss actually at the time, Richard Horner, I actually gave him a credit at the end of my short film. One of the things that he really drilled down to me was, dude, like, you're doing stupid hours. You're driving 70,000 miles a year. And every time I speak to you, you're working. Like, dude, what are you doing this for? And he really talk to me about goals, life goals, aspirations, and being intentional in terms of like the things that you do in your mindset. And he taught a lot about about intrinsic and extrinsic motivations or values. Now, extrinsic motivations or values are things that you do for the gratification or the I guess the validation of somebody else, right? So um, you I don't know, let's just take a very, very mundane example. You're doing a sports or taking up a hobby and you're doing it purely because you know that your parents want you to do that. That's an extrinsic kind of like motivation or value. Intrinsic is things that you do for yourself because you know that they're going to either help you progress or they're going to give you a sense of self-worth, fulfillment. Those are the things that really, really matter because that is the key to finding fulfillment and for finding balance in what you do. And when you're able to key into that, it's very, very surprising how some of the material stuff that we often obsess about in society doesn't actually matter. And you come back to the realization that it doesn't matter. Yes, they're nice to have. 100% they're nice to have. But you get to the real core realization that actually you don't really need them. And even though they are nice to haves, they're not actually going to change anything substantively in your life. And I think if we could all get to that mindset, I really do think that the world would be very, very different, particularly on social media. But I did want to talk about that because this is so important. And because we talk about money and investing here, I had a coaching call yesterday with a couple, and we were talking about their plans. They wanted to invest. They're looking at a very specific strategy. But when I sort of asked about the strategy, it was like, okay, well, it would be to so that we can pull this money and we can do this money with this and grow the money to a larger amount. And I was like, okay, but what else is behind it? They had a son, so okay, so how does this money change things for your son? Maybe where do you want your son to be in 10, 15 years time? Do you want to give him a helping hand? Do you want to use that money as perhaps something to give him a helping start in life, maybe a house deposit or first property for him to begin investing, university fees? Because that's the real like purpose of it, right? If you're going to work all this time and invest and build this pot of money, okay, but to what end? Like, money is a tool, life is for living. It's there as a tool to help you live the life that you want and create the world that you want. So what's the intrinsic motivation behind a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on the channel? What is that? Where does that actually come from? Really, really important stuff. I'm a big believer in it. I really, really am. And it's changed my outlook of the world. And I feel so much more a better person than I did previously. If you had met me when I was doing music, it was all about the money. Even to a certain extent, when I first started working in Canary Wharf and in my run up to Canary Wharf, it was all about the money, it was all about the cash. But actually, you know what? Maybe I'm old now. Maybe I have a little bit of hindsight behind me, but you know, I start to look at the world in a very different place. And many of you will get to that point where you will. But what I'm trying to say here is if you're able to key into that kind of mindset a lot earlier, you'll find that everything becomes a lot easier. So much easier. And so, yeah, look, I know that there are a couple of there's a few comments in here now. So let's just get to these and get to as many questions as we possibly can. So bear with me whilst I just scan up to the top here. Let me just move this quickly as well. There we go. Okay, cool. Let's have a look. All right, let's have a look at this one then. This is from Ian. What do I think of penny stocks? Penny stocks are okay. I mean, a penny stock is basically defined as any stock that is valued below £5 or $5, essentially. You can get some really good companies as penny stocks. But I think just looking at the price of the share price of a business when you're buying it is not really the best place to start your research. So I would tend to start looking at the fundamentals more than anything else, looking at what the business does, how strong they are, strategic advantages in a sector, what they're doing in the sector, their competition, balance sheets. Are they making money already? They're paying dividends. If they're not, okay, there's a plan? How big is the product or the service that they're providing? How impactful is that likely to be? I would start there. If they just happen to be a penny stock, then Okay, that's an added bonus. But there are a lot of people who will literally go after penny stocks as their strategy, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're happy with the fact that obviously it's high risk. It's a high risk strategy, so there's nothing wrong with them. I don't think I own any myself. It's just it's not my style of investing. But for many people, it is, and there's nothing wrong, I guess, with maybe having a portion of your portfolio where you might have a little bit of exposure to penny stocks. If you get one right, you could do very, very, very well. But it is risky. You've got to be thinking more long term more than anything else, and yeah, you just got to be mindful, I guess. Really, there's a follow up here from Ian. By the way, I invested 80% ETFs and 20% stocks. Um, just wanted to know how you feel about them. Cheers. Well, hard for me to say without actually knowing what stocks you've actually bought and what ETFs you've actually bought. So I can't really comment, mate, until seeing it. And also I don't know your risk profile, and I don't know what contingencies you have when we have the conversation about risk that you're willing to take. So you're willing to go into an 80% ETF uh, and then 20% into individual stocks, right? So you've kind of got like a core satellite there. But I don't know what your risk in terms of what you're able to take is like. So risk you're willing to take and able to take are two different things. Willing to take is you want to go into equities and invest in ETFs and have stocks. So you're pretty much 100% equities, no other asset classes, bonds, property, commodities, that kind of stuff in there. Then you're willing to take is able to take is, well, what does your general financial situation, look like in terms of the foundations upon which you've been started to invest from? I don't know those things, so it's hard for me to comment without actually seeing what you actually have. But that's the kind of stuff that I tend to do in coaching. You know what? Whilst I was speaking, I completely forgot that I actually need to highlight something for you guys as well. And this will be a shameless self plug, but I'll do that. I'll do this in a moment. Let me just take a couple more questions, and then we'll crack onto the questions. And once I've done this, I always, always, always forget to do it every single time. And I promised myself this year I'm gonna make a conscious effort to actually highlight some of the things that we're doing. Bobo, how you doing? Nikki, really good to have you here, mate. Thank you. Yeah, you know what, JD? I've been very, very lucky because I'm on the high risk list, right? So it could have been really, really bad. Now, I am double vaxxed, but I had pneumonia probably about 3 years ago, and that almost took me out. I mean, like really, really bad. Stupidly, I continued to work knowing that I was really, really ill because I'm a workaholic. And I went to the hospital really, really late. And if I'd not gone that day, the nurse said I would have been dead because my oxygen level was so low. I was struggling to breathe. I couldn't lie down to breathe. I had to sit up to breathe. And when I got into the hospital, they literally put me right on ventilators and breathing machines and stuff. So COVID for me was all the way through the last couple of years has been one of those things where I'm like, okay, I need to be very, very careful. So I avoided it for 2 years. Obviously, caught it the week I was supposed to start shooting for Channel 4. So that went out the window this week. We're starting next week now. And but yeah, my symptoms were very, very mild, thankfully. And I think that's down to the fact that I am double vaxxed. So I had a headache one day. I had a bit of a cough. And that was pretty much it. I didn't have any of the aches. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have to stay in bed for any extended period of time. I felt a little bit rough, but it wasn't as bad as what most people have had. So I consider myself very lucky for that as well. I know you got a question here, so let's get to that. What's your thoughts on precious metals, especially with the market as it is and the possibility of crash / recession? Precious metals are generally a way to hedge and diversify your portfolio. So you'll be looking at things like gold, platinum, silver, that kind of stuff. They're generally quite good. I mean, the question will be, if you're going to be looking at things like precious metals, how do you actually buy it? Some people want to go down the route of buying physical gold, physical silver, that kind of stuff. Can be a little bit expensive. You're then got to think about the cost of actually disposing of it, because do you get a really good deal? Some people might decide that they can go for something like maybe a gold ETF, that kind of stuff, that gives you a little bit more liquidity and easily be able to trade it, and opposed to you bought a physical thing. I mean, buying physical gold can be problematic because how are you going to store it, right? So yeah, I mean, it can be a very, very good diversifier. because it's a finite resource and it's always held value historically. All right, let me take one more. Then I'm going to talk about the other thing that I wanted to just very, very briefly show you. I've got some teething problems because I've been working on this all day with my developer, and we know that certain things aren't fixed just yet, but I'll go through it in a minute. Okay, there's this. Let me just read this from Jeff, actually. As you're saying. Back when we were kids, there wasn't the resources or access that we have now. Very, very true. Can find mutually minded people, and the naysayers saying no, no, don't invest in stocks. You know what? I honestly believe that there's a generation of people who are not going to think like that anymore, and that is down and thanks to social media. But yeah, like when I was in my 20s, mate, like literally, if you wanted to invest in the market, you needed like 5, 10 grand. Like to start, you had to go to your bank or see a financial advisor, and it was expensive. Like, there's no excuse not to be invested now. There's no excuse not to take an interest in these kind of conversations now. Like, you have to. I mean, it's everywhere, really, to be honest. And while social media can be really difficult to, I guess, navigate when it comes to the hyperbole around investing and maybe some of the untruths and misinformation that is out there, you just can't get away from the subject, and I think that's a good thing. I think where I obviously want to remain in this space is as that voice of like reason and experience, that kind of shares my knowledge, my take, but ultimately allowing people and giving people the power to form their own decisions and make their own decisions based off some of the things that I share online. That's really my goal. And so, it is a different time right now, but I wish that I was in my 20s now, basically, because future would be so, so different. There are so many opportunities now with social media and the internet and crypto and Web 3.0. It's insane. It's a really, really good time to be in your 20s and young and looking at the future. It's very, very exciting indeed. All right, okay, cool. I just want to show you guys something, okay? Now, as you guys know, it's all about education here, okay? So providing resources, providing things that will help you understand the world of finances and investing, because obviously it is very, very important. And I just launched, obviously, the magazine. So let's just get rid of this one quickly. We finished the website today. So the magazine is called the Convo, and it's a derivative of the conversation, or conversation of money, basically. So you think about conversation, convo is a short term derivative from that. I want it to be quite casual and stuff. So this is the website now. If you've not already subscribed to it, you can do that either on conversationofmoney.com or on this website. It's called theconvo.io. So it's simple financial news, and really the goal is to help you become your own financial hero. That's essentially what it is. We're talking about simple financial news, no jargon, no complicated language. We're talking very, very simple explanations and talking about it like we talk about things here on YouTube. Very, very simple, conversational, none of this nonsense, essentially. So this is the cover for issue 2. It's actually going to be out this weekend. I just need to do some finalizing things, like proofread it and do some final bits and pieces to design. But it's basically a flip magazine. So it's basically a digital magazine. You'll read it like a normal magazine, but it's in digital format. So you can subscribe there. We've got current issues. So when you go onto the website, and this is one thing that is kind of broken at the moment, my web guy's going to fix it in the morning. If you go here, you can subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, you will get the email to let you know when the issues come out on a monthly basis. So if you subscribe to that, it says failed at the moment because there's something wrong with the feed into the mailing list. But once you do that, you'll be able to read issue 1. So I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, can you send me issue 1 because I missed it in January? This is how you actually access it. So you land on here, you click on this. If you're watching this on replay, it will be fixed by the time you see this. You click on this, enter your email address. It will give you access to issue 1. The same thing will happen with issue 2 if you're not already on the subscription list and you don't get the email to say that it's gone live this weekend. Issue 3 will be coming in March. We'll be working on that maybe in the next couple of weeks or so. But this issue in issue number 2 is all about inflation. We've got a crypto column in there as well. There's lots of questions around crypto. What's going on? Are the fundamentals still good? So on and so forth. It's jam-packed. It's really, really good. A little bit about it. It is fully interactive. So you've got audio content, video content in there. There's no Latin, no jargon. It's completely free as well. So if you're on there, you've got an FAQ section. Very simple website. But if you do want to go and subscribe, by all means, go and subscribe either on this website, which is the convo.io, or you can go to conversationofmoney.com, and it's there at the top of the actual website. Let me just show you very quickly. Yeah, so you can either join there. And again, that's the cover for issue number 2. So if you want some simple, easy to understand financial news, that is how you actually get some. I have had some feedback. So last year, when was it? Maybe summer or so, through the summer or so, I had like a private Discord group, and we would meet like every like Sunday evening, 8 p.m. We'd talk about specific stocks. We'd do some analysis. We'll have a look at markets, and people will be able to ask me questions directly within the group, and we would communicate in there. I closed that down as we were coming out of lockdown, because things just got crazy for me. Things are still a little bit crazy, but I've had Carly and a number of other people that were in the group saying, are you going to bring this back? So I'm thinking about that at the moment. And one of the things that I thought is, well, okay, so how do I actually provide value to you guys? The reality is I probably wouldn't be able to do like a weekly meetup, but within the group, there are questions that people would ping me. I'd look at certain things for them. So for example, if they're looking at a particular ETF or an index fund or a stock, they can say, Pete, what do you think of this? And I'll give you my views. And one of the things that I thought I might include in this is early access to the magazine. So if you did get part of the Discord group and a part of the membership group that will be tagged onto the channel, you'll get access to the magazine a full 2 weeks or so in advance. I might be bringing that back. I don't know just yet. It's all about the time allocation of, how much access can I actually provide in terms of us getting together as a group on a regular basis and talking about the markets and answering questions and, being that voice of I guess that guide, if that makes any sense. So possibly bringing that back. I'm not too sure just yet. Let's have a look at some more questions. Right. There is one here on pensions. Hello, I have 2 pensions, one from Nest, auto enrolled to a company, one from Vanguard SIP. If I pay through enough into Vanguard with all my tax relief going into Vanguard instead of Nest, in my opinion, is bad. Yeah, I mean, Nest is supposed to be the government type thing for auto enrollment, the default thing. Because so there are some employers that just can't afford to instruct like an LNG or a Vanguard or a Fidelity or a big investment house like Aegon to administer their pension. So Nest is where you would go. Now, Nest, I do know what you mean. Some of the performance of the funds aren't that great, particularly if you're in a default kind of like plan. Yeah, I mean, you may be better off. I think the main thing for you, though, just to answer the question that you have, and maybe speak to your HR team or, whoever is administering the pension itself. Sometimes you have to pay into the Nest or the workplace scheme. They won't allow you to pay away to it. And some people won't allow you to do things like a partial transfer. So for example, in your Nest, if you had 30K in there, some people would allow you to transfer maybe 20K to Vanguard or somewhere else. Some people will allow you to do that. Some people won't. So I think it's just worthwhile having a conversation with your provider and with the HR team, or maybe a representative at Nest, just to make sure that you're able to do that. But yeah, I mean, Nest, I knew someone who had a Nest pension and the performance wasn't really that great. But then again, they were in a default fund. And this is what I always say to people that, one of the first things you should be doing when you're looking at a workplace scheme is at least try and make sure that you know what all the options in terms of where your money is going or can go are, so that you can decide accordingly whether you want to stay in a default or whether you want to up your risk to try and get your money to work as hard as possible. I think that's really important. But, the key thing with this is we're talking about a pension here, which is an investment. And it means that you've got to be comfortable with the level of risk that you're taking, because ultimately your capital is at risk. And if you don't invest it appropriately, then obviously, you could get less back than what you actually put in. But you have to be comfortable with the level of risk that you're taking with it, really. But yeah, hope that helps, mate. I'm not sure if it does, Michael, but let me know. Hey Pete, how did you get over COVID? Listen, mate. The minute I knew that I was going to have a cough, and it felt like I was going to have a cough, I literally bought like 8 packets of soothers and just literally munched through those in like a few hours, and that took the edge off the cough because I literally, the minute my throat started tickling, I was straight down the garage to get some. I didn't know at that point that it was COVID, so I swallowed like, I don't know, eight packs of soothers within like 2 days or so, which is a bit of an overkill, but it really did help with the cough. It never got really, really bad. So I only had the cough for maybe like a day. And then after that, it was just coughs here and there, clearing my chest because I had a bit of phlegm and stuff, as you do. But yeah, it was, I had a lot of cold and flu tablets, soothers, paracetamols, painkillers. That was pretty much it, really. Again, very, very lucky, I think. Um, Thank you very much. I appreciate this comment. Thank you very much. I love that you're here and watching as well. Thank you. And live streams too. So we will do more of this. So one thing that I haven't done, I haven't covered as much news as I wanted, and said I would do this year. Um, it's just been a little bit crazy, guys, and obviously with news and stuff, because there's so much going on. It's like selecting the most relevant one at the time. I will be doing more of that. But like I said, we're shooting for Channel 4 through next week, and we're shooting all the way through through a large part of March as well. So I'm all over the place. So the videos will be very, very different. For some of them will be very, very different. Some of them will be shot out and about. So once we get that all settled down, I will have like a system, a schedule, or whatever I can put together just to provide a little bit more news and break down the news in simple terms for you guys as well. Claudio, what's going on? What's up? Thank you for being here, bud. Appreciate you. Yes, if you can smash the like button, that would be absolutely amazing. There are 31 likes on there at the moment. If we get up to like 40, 45, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, let me. All right, let me, 1 second. Let me just catch this. All right, let's have a look at this one because this is a really good question, and this is a very good conversation to actually have. So Steve is saying here, I'm not sure about a private pension. Would it be better to invest into ISAs, stocks and shares, so at least I can benefit from any time withdrawal ability? You know what? Really, really good point. I think it really depends on circumstances, right? So obviously with an ISA, it's completely tax-free. The limit is 20 grand a year, which is good, solid. And actually, with an ISA, your income is also tax-free as well at the point of withdrawal. When you compare that to a pension, you're not going to get any tax relief on the way in. You're not going to get any contributions from an employer on the way in if you're doing it via auto-enrollment. So maybe some free money that's being left on the table. But let's just assume that you haven't got an employee. It's a private pension, right? Yeah, tax relief on the way in, you're not going to get in an ISA. You do have the whole point of accessibility, because obviously within a pension, the current legislation tells you that you cannot access your pension until the age of 55. So ultimately, any money that goes in, you've got to be okay with leaving it there. It is a tricky thing to answer whether you should do an ISA over a pension. Now, the other thing to note with that comparison is that with a pension, the amount that you can contribute every year, so your annual allowance is actually 40,000, so it's 2 times the amount that you can put into an ISA. Now, obviously, you can't put 40k in if you're earning 30k. You've got to be earning quite a bit to be able to put in 40k. But if you were the kind of person that actually you could put in 40k, so for example, you're in a really well-paid job and you might do a salary sacrifice, or I don't know, are you running your own business? You might have some spare cash that you just throw into your pension. Then the larger amounts will really, really help you. But yeah, I mean, the accessibility, whether you're going to need access to the money early or not, is a really, really good question. And again, when you're talking about these kind of things, right, you've got to think about what your circumstances are and what the plan looks like, what everything looks like ahead of you to make an informed decision. It's not a case of do one over the other. It's a question of which one suits your circumstances right here and now. And your decision should always be based on that, really, because even as a financial advisor, we always used to look at the client's needs, the client's goals, and then, it's like walking into, like, I don't know, B&Q and go into the tool aisle, right? There's just a ton of tools that you could use, but which one's the most appropriate one? So you pick the most appropriate tool for the job at hand. Same thing applies with investing. Same thing applies with personal finance. So that's a really good question. Really, really, really good point there. Bobo, I still think hydrogen is the future. You know what? I can't say that I disagree with you. I can't say that I agree with you. I don't know. I think hydrogen has a long way. I think if you can get the systems to it right, and the innovation behind it right, there's legs to it. Because look, EV, and the move towards electric vehicles is not perfect. It isn't. The arguments are, how is it going to be sustained via the grids? We need way more renewable energy plants than we currently have in order to make that really sustainable. So anything else that can come along and perhaps provide an alternative that could be cleaner but less intensive, and be a genuine renewable or alternative to EVs, then it is going to be welcome. It's just the case of, is the tech there, and how far does the tech have to go? Because if you think about everyone going from fossil fuels all the way into EVs in Europe in the next, where are we right now? We're in 2022. A lot of people are saying 2030, 2044. So the next, 8 to 18 years, EV has to do something in the near future in order for it to be able to get to the point where it potentially gains that mass appeal. I mean, because like the Tesla numbers are insane. They're selling cars like hotcakes right now. And the numbers, Gigafactory Berlin is coming online very, very soon. I think the Gigafactory factory in Texas is also coming online. I think has already come online. So Berlin's due in March. They are doing some serious numbers. So there's a massive sway. So if hydrogen can help on that journey of sustainability, I think it could be a winner. It's just there's a lot of questions on it at the moment. Dude, I am. I might be in Birmingham on Tuesday because I'm supposed to have a meeting. Probably around St Paul's Square. Maybe at St Paul's House actually on Tuesday. So I'm going to be around, mate. So if you are, drop me a DM on IG, and maybe we can have a coffee or something like that as well. Oh, and by the way, whilst we're talking about IG, thanks for this, Roy. Whilst I talk about IG, there is again somebody acting to be me, an imposter, pretending to be me on Instagram. So again, guys, please do not send somebody money with a conversation of money with an underscore on Instagram. I will never, ever, ever ask you guys to send me cash for anything. If you're booking me for a coaching session, that's very, very different. But there's an official way for you to book a coaching session with me. And before anybody books a coaching session with me, what I ask them to do is book a free 30-minute discovery call with me. So you get to see the whites of my eyes on camera. And I get to see the whites of your eyes as well on camera. So please don't go and send anybody money on Instagram, on TikTok, or anywhere. If you haven't spoken to me, you haven't booked a discovery call with me. And it has to be me. I don't have anybody. I don't have an assistant that takes meetings for me. I don't have anybody that does anything on my behalf. This thing is me, and it's just me. YouTube, podcast, now a magazine. It is just me. I don't have a team of people that support me. It is just me. So if you haven't spoken to me in person and you know what I sound like, and this is the thing that kind of annoyed me last time this happened, somebody did send one of the guys who copied my account last year, I think they sent something like £4,000. And in my Discord group at the time, Marcus managed to find the number for this guy. And when I pretended to be a potential customer and WhatsApp this guy, and I said, I want to speak to you, it was a Filipino guy. It's like, dude, if you spoke to him, you will know that he doesn't sound anything like me. And furthermore, the number was a +1 number, which is an international US number. I live in the UK, dude. I'm in Birmingham. So It's an English number for me. So please just be careful, be vigilant. Don't send anybody any money pretending to be me. I would never ask you any cash for any cash in any way, shape, or form. So please just be careful. And if you do come across the account on Instagram, it is on my stories right now. Just do me a favor and report. I've tried this so many times with Instagram that I'm not even going to bother reporting it. In fact, the account actually blocked me, so I couldn't actually find him. Someone messaged me on DM saying, I've been watching you on YouTube. I came to find you on Instagram, found out there are two of you, and realized this is your real account. So this is the clone account. And the clone account had blocked me, so I couldn't actually find them. So I had to do it via my personal account to go and find what this account was. So just be very, very vigilant out there. I'm still applying and trying to get verification, because if I can get the blue tick, it solves this issue altogether. But last year when I tried, Instagram are just nonsense. Facebook are just nonsense in the end. So yeah. Where are we? Okay, this is a penny stock Jeff is talking about here. ATY, $3.03. I don't know that I've heard of ATY to give any comment on them. Yeah, but always do your research, as you're saying there, mate. Vin, here we go. I have a 2-year-old and would like to start an investment portfolio for him. Was thinking of Vanguard, the S&P 500. Is that a good bet, or is there a riskier strategy considering he is 2? It would be long term. Vin, sorry. One of the things that you could do is you could have a look at a junior ISA for your son. Because within the junior ISA, the beauty about that is that you could pay into it, wife or mum could pay into it, grandparents could pay into it, aunties, uncles, nephews, anyone can pay into it essentially. The limit for that is £9,000 every single tax year for your son. So if he's 2 at the moment, you're doing that for 18 years. Imagine what it would be like if you were able to invest $9,000. I mean, look, actually, you know what? Let's not be greedy, and let me just pull something up for you really quickly, just so you can see the power of this. There is a downside, which I'll tell you in a minute. What am I doing? Okay, cool. So let's just say, and I'm going to share my screen right now, okay? So let's just say, Vin, let's just say you were able to do, let's just say £2,000 a year for your son. Let's just say you do nothing as the initial investment in there. And I'm just going to do, let's just say you do an assumptive return on average per year. I'm going to go 7%, right? And I'm going to go maybe 18 years on this investment. And we're going to compound this yearly. Now, this will not take into account any like fees, management fees, or anything, or no charges or anything like that. This is just to give you an idea of what could be potentially for your son. And let's just say, well, if I said 2,000 a year, divide that by 12. What am I doing? Times 2, divide that by 12. So 166 quid. I know that's a lot of money, but I'm just assuming that, you're going to chip in, uncles will chip in. And if you average $2,000 a year, right? So let's just do it that way, 166 for a month. Then essentially, when you do a calculation for this, that could potentially be almost 70 grand for your son. And what I say to parents when we start looking at and having these kind of conversations is, think about the difference that could potentially make. I mean, you look at the generations at the minute, house prices. I talk about this in the magazine. Inflation, the perfect storm. Wages aren't keeping up. You have interest rates increasing, property price increasing, but people aren't earning any more money. Then the deposit amounts are large, and property prices, because they're large, increase the deposit amount. 70k could be a very, very nice deposit for a property for your son. Now, if you're of the ability to contribute even more into it, think about the difference that actually makes. Now, the downside with a junior ISA is at 18, your son takes ownership of that money, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I just think that whilst he's growing up, it's important for you to have money conversations with him so that he understands the value of money, and he understands that you've been working really hard, and family members and people that love him have been paying money into this thing to give him the best start in life. That's a really good way to go about it, mate. And again, it will be all tax-free because it's in a junior ISA as well. So that's maybe something that you can have a look at. Obviously, it's invested, so capital at risk and all that kind of stuff. Just be mindful of that. But it could be a really good option for your son. So maybe something to think about there, mate. Question here: what do I think about dividend stocks? I think dividend stocks are great. Dividend stocks are good. They do have a very, very important role to play. Um, I've been very, very vocal about the fact that I don't necessarily lead with dividend stocks because there are a lot of people who will, and for good reason, some people, but there are a lot of new investors who will watch YouTube videos. And I know a number of YouTube accounts that will just be, it's all about the dividends, like dividend this, dividend that, guess how much I got. And my honest but skeptical reason behind why they do that is because of this whole notion of passive income. That phrase annoys me to no end. Passive income. It's become so sexy that everybody talks about passive income now. But it's like I'm of the opinion that if you're only investing small amounts of money and you're talking about I got passive income this month and it's £5, so what? Like, so what? That's just the way I look at it. But I'm not investing for passive income currently. I'm investing for growth. And so for me, when I look at companies that I buy, if they pay a dividend, it's a bonus. It's not my requirement. And I think that's very important for people to understand, because if you're purely picking companies because they're paying dividends, and there is a very successful American who talks about the fact that he doesn't even look or blink at a company unless they're paying dividends. And the thing about that is, it seems innocuous as a statement, but first and foremost, he's a millionaire. So because a millionaire is a millionaire does not mean that they're financially literate. And this is a prime example of that statement. He doesn't blink at a stock unless they pay dividends. Well, that's great for you because you've got millions in the bank and you've got money that you can put in to actually get a decent dividend payment, passive income to support your lifestyle. That isn't true for first-time investors who may only be looking to invest £10, £20, £15 a month, right? So for me, dividends isn't the selection criteria. It's a bonus. If you go and have a look at dividend stocks exclusively, and that's your method of research, and you're just starting out and you're relatively young, guess what? You would have missed out on Tesla. You would have missed out on Amazon, because those companies do not pay dividends. But look at the returns that they've done over the last 12 to 24 months. They've been some of the biggest providers of gains in the tech sector. So don't use that as your main core selection criteria. Try and think about your goal, what you're looking to do that for. And if you are picking individual stocks, think about what kind of companies can help you achieve your goal. And yes, dividends might play a role in that, but don't let that be the main research criteria that you're using to select your companies. I think that's a little bit misguided. It does have a role if you're looking for an income and you have a significant amount. So, the last 18 months, the amount of calls that I took where it was like, I need a passive income. And I talk about, okay, so how much have you got to invest? And it's like, well, I want to be putting 500 quid in a month. Well, it's not going to get you anything that is going to pay your bills. And when I start asking, how much do you need in passive income? Well, I need 12 grand a year, £1,000 a month. You want to invest 500 quid to do that? It's not going to happen. And as much as that may sound like you're bursting people's bubble, Pete, it is the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. I'm not here to blow smoke up people's bums or anything like that. I'm just simply stating the truth. That is the reality of it all. And it's those kind of mindsets that then lead people to things like cash FX and all of these things that end up to be pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes, where actually it's so good to be true, they're paying out, but actually, yes, of course it's going to pay out. That's what Ponzi schemes basically do. They pay out until they can no longer pay out. And I just think it's a very, very slippery slope. And I think that's where these kind of conversations about what you're doing, why you're doing it really, really matters. It goes back to what I was talking about before. Intrinsic motivations versus extrinsic motivations, really getting down to the core of it all. What is this for? Does that passive income actually play a purpose? So are you looking at passive income because social media is telling you that you should have a passive income, you want to have an easy life? Or you're 20 years old. And quite honestly, whilst you're in your prime, like with the energy to work. You should be focusing on wealth generation, going to work, earning as much money as you possibly can, throwing that into the markets so that later on you can have this nice amount of money that you've amassed that then gives you options. People want to do that the opposite way around now because it's sexy with passive income. They want to have a really nice passive income when they're in their 20s. But okay, if you retire at 30, you're probably going to live to 90. What are you going to do? You get to 50, you're past your prime at that point, right? So what are you going to do when you have another 30 years to live? How are you going to acquire income, capital, to be able to make that 30-year happen? And again, intrinsic, extrinsic values. What are you doing this for? If you're enjoying what you're doing in your 20s and your 30s and you're good at it and you're able to earn as much money as possible, I think that the place we're at the moment is because we live in a society where work doesn't work anymore. And it goes back to some of the stuff that I talk about in the magazine. Stupid inflation, interest rates increasing, absolutely absurd property prices that mean you've got to have stupid deposits. It just becomes completely and utterly unrealistic. I was reading a tweet. What was her name? Kirsty Allsop was talking about young people today need to give up their gym memberships and all this nonsense in order to afford a property and save for a deposit. I mean, how misguided and out of touch is she? Like, no, it's crazy. And like, fair enough, everything is relative. So for her, maybe she was, she had to save and do all this stuff. But there are challenges that generations today are facing that no generation before has even had the notion or even could even think about facing. It is a completely different ball game right now, and it feels as though all of the economic factors that we talk about, and I talk about specifically in issue 2 of the magazine, it feels like it's conspiring against you if you're a young person, if you're in your 20s. I completely get that. And for me, it's very, very hard to balance. It's very, very hard to say to people, don't look at this, you need to go down here. But does this actually get you to your goal quick enough? Because we need it quick, Pete. We need to do it now. You feel under pressure. And it's very, very hard to try and balance those things out. And I do honestly think that we need to have different kind of conversations. And it's just hard because social media is great on one side, but it's just terrible. It's horrible on a completely different avenue. And finding the balance almost feels impossible these days. And part of me is thankful that I'm not 20 living in society today. And I said it's exciting right now, but I fully acknowledge the problems and the issues that the younger generation face now. It really, really is very, very difficult. Let's have a look at this. I'm currently saving up for a mortgage with my partner. We both max out our licenses every year. Should we use the license now on a smaller house or wait a few more years for a larger place? Mate, this is a really, really good question. Look, let's look at where we are right now. Okay, and I was having this conversation with somebody earlier today, actually. So the big fear is, and maybe we need to look back a little bit now before we get on to where we are currently. So interest rates have been very, very low for a very long time, which means that if you were going to borrow money, you're going into a mortgage, it is cheap money. And what cheap money basically means is that you can borrow money and the interest that you're paying back is so small that when you look at acquiring assets like property, well, it's almost like a no-brainer. It's like, well, if property prices go up and I'm getting interest rates so cheap, why not just borrow the money, buy the property will increase in value, and that begins a cycle where property prices basically spiral out of control, which is kind of what we were alluding to and talking to a little bit earlier, right? Now let's look at where we are. We know, and I said this on a live, I think on Friday, and I said it in the podcast this week, cheap money is coming to an end. Like the interest rate hikes that are coming will mean that you're no longer going to be able to borrow money at such cheap rates anymore. It's going to be more expensive. And the fear there is that if interest rates become really expensive, it gets expensive to borrow money to buy and acquire these properties. Or what that might do is bring housing prices down. Now, that's an equilibrium that for first-time buyers is a catch-22. So you're probably happy that property prices are coming down, right? Because they've been high for ridiculous amounts. So I've got a friend in Tunbridge Wells. He's got a family of four kids. Yeah, he just had another one, which is why I'm counting them out now. Four kids. For him to buy a house, he needs 700 grand. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely nuts. And you think about the deposit you need for that, like £70,000 as a 10% deposit. Like, he runs his own business. He's fairly successful. Like, it's going to take him some time. He's only halfway there. So he's got to work like mad to get another £35,000. And we were talking about this afternoon. He might go and get that extra £35,000. So he's got his 70. Then all of a sudden, house prices at 750, which means he needs another 10% of that. It feels like a hamster wheel, a cycle that you can never get ahead of. So if housing prices come down, you're thinking, yay, great. But the catch 22 is, well, now you need a mortgage. The mortgage rates are a lot higher, which means that your mortgage payments are going to be so much more expensive. And then you talk about affordability and budgeting and all the tests and the stuff that they do in the mortgage and in the banks when they're looking to borrow a mortgage. It's a really, really big catch 22. In answering this question, what I would do, mate, is sit down with your partner and really have a look at what are the pros and cons. We don't know what's going to happen around the corner. We know that interest rates are going to increase. We don't know how much by. That is the unicorn. That's the unicorn. We just don't know. But if they do, would you still be able to afford a property, bearing in mind that your mortgage payments will be a lot higher than what they would be currently if you went for a smaller property? I'll be talking about what your goals as a couple are. So are you looking to have family, kids, starting a family? If you are, will you just be buying the small house for the time being and then realizing, well, actually you're going to grow out of that very, very quickly? That might actually mean it might make sense to wait for the bigger house. But knowing, right, you might need a large deposit, it might cost you a little bit more. It's a really, really difficult conversation to have, mate. I think you need to sit down with your partner, find out what your goals are, have a really good conversation about it, and just work out the pros and cons, mate. And just try to make an informed decision based on where we are right now. If we had a crystal ball, I had a sports almanac, I'd love to be able to tell you what the interest rates would be in like 2 years' time, but I just can't. And it's a really, really difficult situation to be in. But if you have a conversation with your partner, at least once you get down and have that conversation and you visualize and maybe note down a few things about, right, this is what we want to be, this is where we want to go, this is the goal, it will definitely help you make the best decision for the moment right now, instead of kind of guessing what happens, I guess. All right, let's get this one, Stefan. I'm 27 years old, have increased my pension contributions to 16%. Well, dude, my sheesh. All right, go. I like this. 10% myself, 6% workplace. Now waiting to 30 to increase that to 21 plus overpaying my mortgage. Dude, oh my God. That fills me with joy, mate. Listen, I'm telling you right now, when I was 27, so I used to work for RBS. And again, going back to the conversation I had this week with the lady that I spoke about at the top of this live, I found myself in a similar situation to her, where I joined a company. It was RBS, and bearing in mind RBS is a bank, they had a defined benefit pension. These things are gold dust now, right? If you have a defined benefit pension, what it basically means is that if you work for a company for a period of time, they will guarantee you an income for life when you retire. Doesn't matter whether that is £500 a year or 50 grand a year, depending on, you've got to be very, very high up in the company to get 50 grand a year. But let's say 10, 15 grand, 20 grand a year. I know people with very, 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 very healthy defined benefit schemes. But anyway, I joined them. Now, bearing in mind, they are a bank, okay? They're a bank. I joined. They did not explain what the pension was. They did not explain what a defined benefit was. They simply gave me two choices. They said, so we can pay into a pension for you. Didn't tell me how much it was, or at least I don't recall them telling me how much they would pay into a pension. Or we can give you the money in cash. I'm in my 20s. What did I do? I took the money in cash as beer money. One of the biggest regrets of my life, because it was probably about maybe 5-6 years ago. I was like, yeah, RBS have have a defined benefit scheme. I'm sure I paid into that. I've got some guaranteed pension. Whoop-de-doo. Only to phone them and be like, yeah, you opted out. You took the cash, and then I remembered the conversation. Kicked myself, mate. So the fact that you're 10% yourself now, 6% your workplace. I'll ask you, have you got a matching scheme? You probably know the answer to this or not already. If you don't know the answer to it, go and ask your employer whether they will match your contributions. They probably won't because they're pretty high at the moment at 6%. But 16% going in, then you're looking at getting up to 21%. Mate, you're gonna have a really, really healthy pension if you go on that, especially if you overpay and pay off your mortgage early as well. You'll get to a point probably in your 40s, maybe about 42 or so, and you're going to have a lot of options, particularly if you overpaid your mortgage and you're still paying into that pension in the background. You'll get to a point where you're just going to have the pension money available, which you could probably access. You'll be able to access that at 55. It will be a relatively good amount. At 55, you can take your tax-free cash, so 25% of the amount you amass in that pension, completely tax-free. Mate, you could use that for anything: property, splurge, go buy Ferrari, Lamborghini if you wanted to. Mate, you're on the right track. I wish I thought like you when I was 27. Carly is on here. Carly, how you doing? Ralik, how you doing? Dude, mate, I'll say, so let me just say this by the way as well. Issue two, Ralik actually contributes to issue two as well. So I'm not a crypto expert. Ralik is. So he's one of the popular investors that you can copy on eToro. So he has obviously stock portfolio and he's got a crypto portfolio as well. So he's provided some commentary in the magazine on the crypto side of things, looking at, look, how has crypto as a whole reacted with all of the news about inflation, interest rates, so on and so forth, giving a little bit of an outlook from there. Ralik will continue to contribute to it on a monthly basis as well. So if you're interested in crypto, he's the person to go to. There's always going to be a crypto feature in that. And thank you, mate, for doing it as well. I really do appreciate it. All right, I'm just thinking about time because we're an hour and 2 minutes into this. Let me just scroll. Okay, there's still quite a few comments on here. I'm going to take maybe two more, if that's okay. And then I will see you guys on Sunday. But this was very much an impromptu one. I haven't actually spoken about the main thing that I said I was going to talk about as well, which is this right here, Wealthify. I want to talk a little bit about that so everybody knows what's going on. So let me just take a couple more. I've lost where I was because I've just scrolled down. I've gone way too far. Marky, how you doing? Here we go. Here I am. Okay, Manuel. Hi, I'm thinking of investing in Vanguard Emerging Markets ETF for 5 to 7 years. What's your opinion on that? Thanks. I mean, the ETFs. The ETFs. I mean, okay. Look, ETFs are good. They're great. They'll give you diversification. You're talking emerging markets, mate. I mean, hopefully you've done your research on emerging markets. Now, obviously, Vanguard will do research for you, but I told this story to someone 2 days ago in a conversation. I've worked for discretionary fund managers before. I've sat in investment committee meetings, and whenever we spoke about emerging markets, everyone kind of always approached emerging markets with a pinch of salt, purely because you don't really know the data coming out of those markets sometimes. They're not what we call efficient markets. And so Vanguard would have done a lot of research for you, but just know, mate, it's going to be really, really volatile and like things could change, boom, just like that. And you're investing for 5 to 7 years. Make sure it aligns with your goals. Make sure you're happy with the risk because it could be quite volatile. But equally, you could also do really, really well. It's that's what risk is all about. Speculating to accumulate, right? You could get it right, you could get it wrong. If you're going 100% into it, I would be asking you why you're not diversifying, but you may already be diversified if you've got other things. I don't know. So it's hard for me to tell you what my opinion is 100% without really knowing what your circumstances are and what you've actually got going on. But I would definitely just say, look, emerging markets aren't an efficient market. They can be quite volatile. If you get it right, you get it right. If you get it wrong, you've got to be happy with the fact that you get it wrong as well. But are you diversified and are you happy with the risk? That's kind of what I would say, if I'm honest. All right, one more. Okay, this is a good one. My employer has a share scheme, and if I buy 4 shares, I get one free. Can I build up shares, then move them out to an ISA without paying tax? About paying tax, I didn't. Mm, no, because if you're in a share scheme, it's going to be operated outside of a tax wrapper. Um, I'm not aware that you can actually move it from the share scheme into an ISA. I don't think I've never heard of it being done. I could be wrong, but I've never heard of it being of it being done in that way, because it will be held. They will have a provider that basically holds the shares for you. If that provider has an ISA, then maybe it might be worthwhile asking the question. Um, but yeah, I don't really know, mate. I don't really know. I've never heard of it being done in that way. So it's being bought in a share scheme, but then moved somewhere else to go into an ISA. I've never heard of it go that way. Um, and most of the times, if it's with your employer, there won't be an ISA wrapper available. So my answer is no, but it's worthwhile asking the question because I'm not sure. All right. Okay. Cool. So I did cover this on the video on Tuesday, guys. Wealthify are sponsoring the channel for the next 3 to 5 months. It's a really, really good thing for me personally that we're going to be creating some content together. So I did a review on them when I first started the channel in 2020. I really liked the way they presented information. It was very, very simple. If you've taken my investment course, they're one of the preferred providers. Well, they are the preferred advisor that I said. If you're just starting out, you want to go into a company where you don't have to second guess whether you're doing the right thing, and you're not going to get bamboozled simply by the stuff that's on their website and the language that they use. I thought that they were absolutely fantastic. So for them to approach me back end of last year and say, look, we really like what you're doing. And I don't know whether they've attended some of these live Q&As, but I assume that they did, because we went through a very, very long process to say they would like to support the channel. For me, this is a really, really good thing. So we're going to do some Wealthify content. They're going to be available for some Q&As, maybe talk about the markets, what they do, how they view the markets, how they manage investments, so on and so forth. Again, it doesn't mean that you guys have got to use them. Not at all. But what it does mean is that we've got actual support for the channel and a resource that we can actually call upon as well to actually ask questions to and speak to if we actually need them. And yeah, it's just really, really great. So I'm going to be doing maybe 2 or 3 videos for them. They'll get a few mentions on the channel. They'll join me for a live Q&A, but they're always going to have this logo in my videos over the next 3 to 5 months whilst they're sponsoring. And yeah, it's been really, really great to have them on board. And from going making videos about them in 2020, which were not paid and not sponsored, and including them in my investment course, not having any referral links or anything like that to them, to finally them coming to me and wanting to partner is really a blessing. So, and I have to thank you guys for making this happen as well. Channel 4 starts next week. Well, we start filming next week. It doesn't start next week. I don't know when it's going to air, but it's exciting. It really, really is. At the same time, I'm very, very nervous. Yeah, I don't know. I really, really don't know how to articulate it. It's really, 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 really exciting, but at the same time, I have a nervousness because I say this. I did GB News last year, and I was nervous going there for the screen test. But when the camera was on, I was kind of like, it didn't really make any difference. I'm hoping that this is going to be the same, but for this one at least, I need to change this battery over. We're almost done anyway, but let me just swap this out quickly. But with this one, we're actually recording for TV what I would generally do with people when I coach. Not the full session, but a large part of the session and a large part of what I do for people when I coach. And so there are different people from different walks of life also going to be on this show. So it's going to be very, very interesting. My camera's just gone. Hang on a second. Is this going to work? It's not going to work. Guys, look, I apologize. But I'm not sure that this camera is going to come back on. But anyway, I am equally nervous and I'm equally excited, essentially at the end of the day. So I appreciate every single one of you for being here and supporting and making this possible and supporting the channel as vehemently as you always do. I really, really, really wouldn't have this kind of stuff happen if it wasn't for you guys. I've almost got this right. I had a setting wrong, but how did it get back onto that? It's weird. So yeah, I'm appreciative of every single one of you for supporting and showing up on live Q&As just like this. We will do another one of these on Sunday. Apologies that I haven't got through to all of the questions this evening. But yeah, it's just time. And again, this was going to be an impromptu one as well. I might do a little poll just to kind of see what kind of content and what kind of videos you want me to make. What kind of things do you want me to be talking about? I had a great question via email yesterday from Mandy. I'm going to make a video tomorrow to answer her question. So I might do a little bit more of that on the channel, hopefully. But in the poll, once I post it over the next couple of days, please give me your feedback. But as always, I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you so, so much. I will see you tomorrow for a video in the evening, 5 p.m. And then again on Sunday at 8 p.m. because the weekly Sunday lives have moved to 8 p.m. Catch you later on, guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your week.